up, everybody? Welcome back to the vlog. So today we have something kind of special to get prepared for the tournament this weekend. I've got a sports shot that I'm going to go in here and practice on out here at Town and Country, and I've got 4 balls in my arsenal that are of the same ball line. So I have 2 Fantasy symmetrical solid balls with 2 different layouts on each ball, and then I've got 2 Fantasy Star symmetrical pearl bowling balls that have, again, 2 different layouts. So I'm going to take them inside and just make sure that I understand the difference in the motion, and yeah, we'll see how they perform on a 38-foot sport shot. We'll see you inside. Alright guys, so like I was saying here, we've got 4 balls of the same line, 2 Fantasy Star Pearls, 2 Fantasy Solids, same core, different cover stocks, and the 2 solids have 2 different layouts, and the 2 pearls have 2 different layouts. We're going to throw it out here on the sport shot and just kind of see the difference between the balls. Here are the 2 Fantasy Solids. So the ball with the black fingertip grips is a layout of 3 by 1 inch and 5/8, basically 1.5 inches on the pin buffer. Remember, on symmetrical balls, drilling angles don't matter, so the first measurement, the PSA, or the second measurement, PSA to PAP, really doesn't matter much. Then the second Fantasy ball over here with the white grips has a layout of a 4-inch by 2-inch, so it's a 4-inch pin to PAP by a 2-inch pin buffer. Want to be on the vlog?
Yes.
All right, you're in.
I actually want to be on YouTube.
Do you? Yeah. This is RJ. He is the son of the owner.
Hi guys.
He's here all the time bowling when he's not in school. So let's see what he does with his bowling ball on the lane.
Okay.
I'm going to have him throw a shot. He's a two-hander. He's a two-hander just like me, so he's just a little bit younger.
So this is a ball I don't use all the time, so I'm trying out.
He's practicing with his new reactive equipment. Look at that, he strikes. First time on camera and he strikes. And the 2 Fantasy Star balls that we have here, we've got one that's a short pin to PAP, which is the ball on the right, with the green grips. So this one is a measurement of, let me see here, I think it's 2 1/4 pin to PAP with a 1-inch pin buffer. And then the ball on the left, the other Fantasy Star, is a, and the one on the left with the black grips is a 4.5-inch pin to PAP with a 2-inch pin buffer. So as far as ball shapes are concerned, the Fantasy Solid with the black grips, we should definitely see more motion front to back, with a little bit less motion right to left, because it's going to be a bit smoother off the end of the pattern. The ball's going to be hooking more in the front part of the lane. The white grip Fantasy Solid ball is going to push through the front part of the lane a little bit more and have a bit snappier reaction on the back end of the lane. So that ball is going to need some friction, of course, to have a proper motion through the pins. The short pin to PAP Fantasy Star should kind of react similar to the long pin Fantasy Solid. It's going to have less motion in the front. It's going to retain more energy and kind of have a harder turn on the back end of the lane. You know, with that 2-inch pin to PAP, it's closer to my PAP overall, so I'm curious to see how that ball plays compared to the pin-up Fantasy. And then with the pin-up Fantasy Star, the 4.5-inch or the 4 1/4-inch pin to PAP, that should play pretty similar to the pin-up Fantasy Solid. Obviously it's a pearl, so it should get a little bit more length through the heads with a bit more back-end reaction. Let's get them out on the lanes and see what they do. And just so you know, so the 2 Fantasy Solid balls are at the same surface, which is their out-of-box surface. That happens to be 3000 grit True Cut. And the 2 Fantasy Star balls, I just put at the same surface as well, which is P5008. So the only difference in these balls is the layout. Okay, so the ball we're going to start with first is the Fantasy that has the 3-inch pin to PAP with basically the 1.5 inch pin buffer. Now what we should see out of this ball is basically a hook set motion. So you're going to see the ball want to slow down. Once it enters its roll, it's just going to set and go. So it's not going to do a whole bunch at the break point. Yeah, let's get some shots down the lane and see what we got. So now we're going to move on to the Fantasy Solid that has a longer pin to PAP. So this one is a 4-inch pin to PAP with a 2-inch pin buffer. So we should see it get through the front of the lane pretty clean. And as far as motion on the back, it's not going to have, you know, it'll snap a little bit, but it's not going to be completely snappy. Okay, so with that ball, you could see definitely getting through the front part of the lane much cleaner. And as far as right to left motion, we had quite a bit more right to left motion than the first fantasy ball that I was throwing. In fact, it was so much off the end of the pattern that I actually had to move. It was what, 6 and 2 left to get the ball into the pocket. And every time I went to the pocket 9 pin. All right, so now we're going to move on to the short pin Fantasy Star. This ball should be similar to that last Fantasy Solid I was throwing. It should get through the fronts clean, but because it's a pearl, it should be a little bit cleaner with a little bit more back end. So there is the short pin Fantasy Star. As you could clearly see, it was definitely cleaner through the front part of the lane, so it wasn't slowing down nearly as much. When it got to that break point, it just wanted to go sideways. And I mean, it didn't really matter if my hand was up the back of the ball or around the side of the ball. It just wanted to go through the pins hard. The main difference I noticed about this ball compared to the Fantasy Solid, which has a pin-up layout, a 4-inch pin-up, is that the Fantasy Solid was leaving me more pocket 9 pins, whereas this Pearl ball was actually carrying that 9 pin. You know, sometimes I got a messenger, other times it just split the 8 and 9 perfectly. So you can see there's clearly a difference there. I think the reason why is because the Pearl ball is just a little bit cleaner, so it's making it a little bit farther down the line before it starts to make its move. That's what allows it to split the 8 and the 9 versus the Fantasy, which basically hooks right past the 9 pin. All right, so now we're going to move on to the pin up Fantasy Star, and let's see what this gives us on the lane. So there is the pin up Fantasy Star. Now as you can see, it definitely had more motion from front to back than the short pin Fantasy Star because the pin is obviously in a stronger position. You know, with bowling ball layouts, a pin to PAP that's 3/8, roughly 3.5, is always going to have the ball have its maximum amount of flare as possible. So by putting the pin in a 4-inch position, you're actually causing the ball to flare a little bit less. And by having a 2-inch pin buffer, you're basically amplifying that by causing the ball to have a little bit less differential. So that allows the ball to still hook, but get through the heads a little bit cleaner than a shorter pin to PAP. Now, as far as the short pin ball is concerned, the ball that's got the 2.5-inch pin to PAP, you're basically doing the same thing. By reducing the pin to PAP measurement below 3 inches, you're getting closer to your PAP, which means the ball is going to stabilize really quick, and it's not going to do much in the front part of the lane. So it's not going to flare a ton. You know, as far as which motion I like best, you know, honestly, the pin up Fantasy Star works really good for when you have to get way inside and basically have that ball still go through the pins. Whereas the pin down, or I shouldn't say pin down, but whereas the short pin to PAP Fantasy Star works better for when you need to basically have your ankles a little bit tighter through the front part of the lane because it's standing up sooner. It's basically, the core is getting into that stable position a lot quicker than the 4-inch pin to PAP ball. All right, guys, well, thanks for joining me for today's practice. That was a lot of fun. You know, comparing two balls that are identical with different layouts is a lot of fun. It is a way to train yourself because what you're doing is you're training yourself to recognize different ball motions. You know, the difference is quite subtle. A ball surface definitely plays a bigger difference on shape on the lane than layout does, but layout definitely is still in play there. So it's good to come and practice every once in a while with balls like that have different layouts but are the same bowling ball, just to see the different look that you can get from the same ball. The two Fantasy Stars, you know, as far as my eye telling me what the ball was doing, those two balls were playing totally different from each other. You know, the short pin to PAP Fantasy Star definitely was more stable in the front part of the lane, and it wasn't slowing down nearly as much as it got to the end of the pattern. So something like that should allow me to keep my angles a little bit more in front of me as opposed to opening them up. And then the Fantasy Star that has the longer pin to PAP, it was the Fantasy Star with the 4.5 inch pin to PAP. That ball, of course, is going to be flaring a lot more through the front part of the lane. So that's going to force me to open my angles up. And those two balls definitely would be good for playing off each other. So kind of a unique way to practice, but it's something that is definitely worth practicing if you want to get better. So anyway, next vlog is going to be tonight, actually. I'm going to Fireside Lanes to bowl the Swiss Trios and get some practice on the tournament pattern. I'm bowling with a few buddies of mine, Ricky Macbeth and Derek Humphrey. Derek I bowl league with, and Ricky I've known for a couple of years bowling leagues at Fireside. So this should be a lot of fun tonight. I'll take some video of our shots, and I'll get a video of the pattern if they have a pattern sheet available. So we'll see you guys tonight. Please do not forget to like, comment, and subscribe, and turn on that notification bell. We'll see you guys in a bit.